Hi there, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and today I'm going to talk about a 41 card deck I built for an impromptu chaos draft. And we did this chaos draft for one of our store regulars. Him and his friends got together, and all of us stayed after hours after we locked up the shop, and we just had a good time just hanging out, talking, and drafting. And we had a lot of different packs, and everybody had a really good time. So let me go ahead and get right to it, and I'll show you what I pulled. Okay, so let's take a look at my 41 card mono black deck that I built for our impromptu chaos draft. And of course I did splash just a little bit of red in there, and let's see what I got. So here's my 41 card deck. I had 17 lands. Most of them were swamps, and I did splash a little bit of red in there just because I had one multicolor card that had red that I thought might be useful. Now, I also got Scalding Tarn, so I thought I'd throw that in there on the off chance I actually had the chance to use it and look for one of my two mountains. Again, wasn't too worried about it because, well, the odds of me actually needing this red mana for that one card at just the right time was probably going to be pretty close to zero, but hey, you never know. I figured I might as well hedge my bet a little bit. And what's also nice is by having just these four lands, I never really got in a position to get myself stuck. I never had red when I really needed black because I had so much. Also, I had some artifacts in this deck, and also too, everything was pretty cheap. So if I had one black, usually I was pretty good no matter what. So let's actually take a look at the rest of the deck. So first up, I had Universal Solvent. So one cost, and it's nice. I could spend 7 to sack it to destroy a permanent. I only got to use this actually once in the game. It was pretty useful because what was out there was actually pretty dangerous for me, and I was real happy to use it, but it wasn't a serious game winner for me. Liliana Steward. Sure, I can sack it to have somebody discard a card, but at the same time, mostly, all I was looking for when I was building this deck was a cheap mono black creature deck. So cheap creature I can get out in a 1/2, he's a chump blocker, or I can swing almost as soon as I can on the second turn if I want to with this guy. So that's why I got this guy. Unearth, one cost. This is a great card. I use this all the time in my Bone Shredder deck. I abuse this card in my Bone Shredder deck. It's got cycling, and there's another card that I like to, in this particular deck, that I used Unearth on fairly regularly. And Unearth, what a great card, what a great choice. Bone Shards. Gave me a chance to have some removal. Now, sure, I did have to sacrifice a creature or discard a card whenever I used this, but the power to destroy a creature or planeswalker for 1, I always had cards in my hand, and thankfully I got enough creatures to where I would actually be able to use this without worrying about, oh my gosh, what am I going to get rid of? I actually really like Bone Shards. I thought it was going to be more problematic for me, but nope, I used it quite regularly and was none the worse for wear. Guild Globe. Now this is where I get into my 2-cost stuff. I like this mostly because I get to draw a card, and I really wasn't worried about its second ability because odds are good if I had that one red card, I probably already had a mountain out in order to use it. But of course, this was an ability. If I needed it, I had it. But again, mostly just for the straight-up draw power, just so I could get a card into my hand and maybe get just a little bit ahead of the curve. Amorphous Axe, piece of equipment, 2-drop for 3, and I could buff one of my creatures for 3 on his power, and I actually got to use this to great effectiveness one game. I think I was swinging for 7 at one point, and it was nice. Plus also, when they got rid of my creature, this was still staying around, so I could throw it on something else, and I like that. And this worked really good for me in this game. And I'm usually not an equipment guy, unless it's super gimmicky or super cheap to do. And this wasn't too bad. This is kind of right on the border for me. 2-drop, 3 to equip, but pretty useful, so it worked out for me. Verdant Automaton. The only reason I really got this, because 2-drop, 1/2, just a quick creature to get out, start swinging, or start blocking. I never had a chance to use the ability. I'd never had any green, so I wasn't worried about it. But this was actually pretty useful for me. Of course, there's always somebody that's going to have some really weird packs when you go to do a chaos draft, and I ended up with an extremely slow zombie. Sure, he's got Last Strike, but I couldn't pass up a 3/3 for 2, and having Last Strike only actually affected me one time. But other than that, he was very useful to me, and I even got to put the Amorphous Axe on him, so he was swinging for 6. And that was amazing. I had a really great time with him, and I kind of wish he was just a regular, creature. There's probably another 3/3 for 2 I can find, but I really like the extremely slow zombie now. He's pretty cool. Putrid Goblin, 2/2 for 2. Again, chump blocker, cheap creature to get out there and start swinging with. He does have the persist ability, and I was happy that he was more than just a creature. He had something else that he could do that might actually help me. Although, in hindsight, I didn't think about it until I started making this video, but his persist ability, I had a chance to use it, but I missed using it because I'm not used to using creatures with persist, and I wasn't paying attention. So that was my loss. I don't think it terribly affected the outcome of my game overall, but there was a chance where I missed it, and that's something in Magic you always got to watch out for, is know your cards. And sometimes in a draft or a pre-release, it's hard to know all your cards and remember what they do, because if you're playing a deck that you've built and you could play it regularly over time, it's almost automatic for you to remember things. But in something like this, it's a newer card for me. I don't normally use persist. I'm not used to it, so I missed the opportunity to get this goblin back out and play, so I might actually be able to use him. But again, I don't think it was terribly a big upset in the game for me. Oh, I was so happy to get some removal, some cheap removal at that. Target player sacrifices a creature. Very useful. Use this many times. Elderfang Disciple, a 1/1 for 2. Sure, it has a discard ability for the opponent when they drop into play, but again, that wasn't my main reason. Just a pleasant side effect. Mostly, I'm just looking for a creature so I can swing, do some damage, something cheap to get out there. The Black Lance Paragon. He was really cool, and I used him with Unearth many times. Get him out there and then use Unearth to bring him back because he's a 3/1. Other than the extremely slow zombie, he was one of my other big hitters. I mean, he was a 3/1. He has flash, so he could be an instant blocker if need be. And then he also has an ability when he enters the battlefield that a target knight gains death touch and lifelink until end turn. Never really had a chance to use that to its full effectiveness, but he was really good for me. He was a pretty regular creature, one of my heavy hitters that I had, and he was only a 2-drop. It was great. Iron Bully, another artifact. I definitely went black with heavy artifact because that would help supplement my black deck if I didn't have enough black cards to go around. So 3 cost, he's a 1/1, and he got to throw a +1/+1 counter on somebody, which usually I would just beef him up instead. Instead of making one creature super powerful and making him a big target, I made sure all my creatures were targets of equal opportunity, equal threat, so that way one creature, a player getting rid of one of my creatures, didn't totally throw a wrench in my whole plan. Plus he has Menace. He couldn't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, which again came in very handy. I had a lot of variety in this deck, and I was pleasantly pleased. Demonic Embrace. This was actually the first card of my first pack that I decided to keep, and it was a collector's pack of M21. And Demonic Embrace, 2 black and a colorless. Your creature gets +3/+1, flying, and is a demon in addition to its other types. And you can cast it from the graveyard by paying 3 life and discarding a card in addition to paying its mana cost. This was a great card. This is what made me decide, man, this is a good card. I'm going to go mono black. So, and I was not disappointed, and I used this several times. This is actually pretty cool. It's not very expensive, and I actually like it. I'm really intrigued. I think I want to try and build a more solid deck around that. Crypt Rats. I believe this is a reprint from The Dark, I think. It's a 3 cost. It's a 1/1, but I love its ability. It gives you a board wipe option. Sure, it hurts you just as much as it hurts the other player, but if like me, you need to kind of reset the board a little bit, this is a big help. I was worried when I put it out, my opponent would target it and take care of it, but they didn't. And I was able to use Crypt Rats to kind of literally even out the playing field and give myself a fighting chance. Really neat. And I had originally thrown out and opted out not to get anything that did X, but in this case, just one, it was a good play for me, and I liked it. Plus, he's just a quick chump blocker to get out. The Gilt Blade Prowler, again, just another chump blocker, 2/3, doing a little more damage, only costs 3 to lay out. Now, the ability for 1 tap, pay 1 life, draw a card, I really never got to use that. First of all, when this did come up, it was always because someone was making me mill cards to my graveyard, so I didn't get a chance to use it to its full effectiveness, or actually use it at all. And only if I discard a card this turn. Again, I wasn't really in a position to use it effectively, so it was only a chump blocker, and again, it actually never hit play. One of the few cards that never, ever, ever hit play for me. Chittering Witch, I didn't think I'd use her, and sure enough I did. And since I was playing only one opponent, I only got 1 black rat creature token into play. However, I did use her ability several times. I used her ability a couple times to get rid of 2 annoying creatures on the field, and it just so happens they were 2/2, so that gave me a leg up, and I was able to get in and get some good hits in. Not too bad. 4 cost, I was trying to stay 3 or less, but not too bad. Kitchen Imp, another 4 cost, 2/2, flying in haste. It's got a madness cost, which I never needed to use because I never got into that position. However, flying in haste, that was perfect. This was very handy for me on several occasions. Daring Demolition, some creature removal, and I had some opponents that were actually playing vehicles, so it was definitely nice to have this option. I had a lot of removal in my deck, and to draft kind of really what you need in terms of like removal, like I'm playing black, so I need removal. I got what I needed, and I was real happy with that, and I used this a few times as well. 4 cost, a little pricey, but not beyond the realm of feasibility with this deck. Mage Hunter's Onslaught, pretty much the same thing, destroy target creature or planeswalker. However, the second ability, whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller loses 1 life. That never really came to play because we had so few creatures out, but and just how it ended up being cast and the results of combat, nothing ever really came of that. But again, it was nice to have some extra removal just in case. I had a surprisingly large amount of removal for such a small deck. Myers Malice, card I never really got to use. I would use this occasionally for one of my other cards to discard it, Bone Shards for instance, to discard it so that way I could cast Bone Shards. I never really got to the spot to where I really wanted to use it, so I just kept it in my hand. I didn't even use the Awaken cost. I almost did 1 game, but I really kind of opted out. But overall, still not a bad card. Definitely gave me something to work with. Of course, there's a lot of other cards I would have rather have had, but at least it was there. And then I had my only multicolor card of the deck, which is Terminal Agony. Again, another removal, destroy target creature. Madness never came into effect, and I actually ended up never getting it. The only time I really saw this card is when I got milled, and it went on top of my graveyard. And then last but not least was another card that I never got to use, because either I got it at the wrong time and it's too expensive for me to cast, or it ended up on top of my library after I got milled, and that was Lazotep Behemoth. 5 cost, 5/4. And I was like, well, at least I need some kind of heavy creature in there, some kind of heavy hitter in case I get the chance to get it out and use it, so I put it in there. And so that's generally my breakdown. And real quick, I'll let you see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 1 cost cards. Then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2 cost cards. 1, 2, 3, 4 3 cost cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4 cost, and 1 5 cost card. And that's my 41 card deck for our impromptu Chaos Draft. Now, admittedly, one of the games I played, my opponent, he got mana flooded, and I really got lucky, so I was able to swing and get in for the win. So he didn't have too many options, which was unfortunate. It's kind of one-sided. And that was actually my second game. My first game, I got my opponent the first game, and it was a tight first game. The second game, he rolled me over pretty good, and then he really hammered me the next time. And then, oh, actually, I take that back. Let's see. No, I take that back. My first game, it was a tight game, and he won. And then the next time we played, he just completely rolled me over, so we didn't go to a third game. Then Then we go back to my second opponent where he got mana flooded both games, and I managed to just get through him super quick. And then the third game, my opponent, I got him pretty good first game. Second game, he got me pretty good. And then that last game, I actually managed to get him. And it was a pretty good back and forth, I think, overall, if I remember correctly. Of course, by that time, it was getting to be 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. So a little fuzzy there on that. But overall, we had a really great time. And I was really happy with the deck that I built. If you've never played Draft, you should try it. You could either go to your local FLGS and do a draft, or get some friends and do a Chaos Draft. A Chaos Draft is really fun because you never know what you're going to pull, and that's what this was. And Chaos Drafts, typically, usually they're pretty casual events, pretty informal, and they're fun. We didn't have any prizing. The prize was we just all sit around, got some cool cards, had a great time playing Magic, which that's how it should be. Having a good time with friends. All right, that's it. Okay, so that was the deck I built for our impromptu Chaos Draft for David's going away party, and everybody had a really good time. There was a few things that I pulled that I didn't talk about that really just weren't worth talking about because I didn't use them at all, and either they were the wrong colors or just too expensive to cast. But anyways, doesn't matter. Everybody had a really great time, and we pulled some really cool stuff, and certainly we had a great time seeing David one more time before he left, and we certainly wish him well on his journeys, and hopefully we'll see him again soon. Well, everybody, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, telling you to stay safe, play great games, and we'll see you real soon.